President Joe Biden's Department of Justice has weighed in on Texas's abortion ban. Now, the ban is, of course, after 6 weeks following conception, which means that 85 to 90% of abortions will be banned in the state of Texas. Now, Merrick Garland, the Attorney General, has weighed in, and he said that the Justice Department has reached out to US attorneys' offices and FBI field offices in Texas and across the country to discuss our enforcement authorities. He claims that they will be protecting women's reproductive rights in Texas. But to be quite honest with you, the statement was a little vague in regard to the legality or ability to do so. Now, the department, he claims, will provide support from federal law enforcement when an abortion clinic or reproductive health center is under attack. He also says we will not tolerate violence against those seeking to obtain or provide reproductive health services, physical obstruction of property damage in violation of the FACE Act. And there he's referring to the Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances Act, a 1994 law that prohibits threats to and obstruction of a person seeking reproductive health services or of providers. Now, following the passage of that bill, and once it was put into effect, abortion clinics noticed that there were anti-choice activists basically swarming around the clinics, shining spotlights at them and being incredibly intimidating. So it's probably what he's referring to there, but it's still unclear whether the Department of Justice can really block Texas from enacting this abortion ban. And it still needs to work its way through the courts. Remember, what the Supreme Court did was essentially refuse to block the law as it works its way through the federal courts. So they haven't weighed in on the constitutionality of it yet, but by the way that it's written, some legal experts are worried that the Supreme Court would allow it to stand. Although, Cenk, I wanted to ask you a question, right? Because we talked about how the enforcement mechanism for the law doesn't rely on the state. They are allowing private citizens across the country to report possible illegal abortions in the state of Texas. But who would adjudicate that?
Yeah, so
it would be the courts.
It would, but the loophole that they're using for now, which is both good news and bad news. The bad news is obvious, it's allowing the law to stand. I'll get to the good news as part of the explanation. So normally what would happen is when a state passes a law, anyone can challenge it because the state has enforcement power, and hence it affects people whether you've begun to enforce it or not, because you can enforce it, right? So then you can sue the state and block it before it really takes effect, right? But in this case, they're saying the state isn't going to enforce anything. It's the private citizens that are going to sue. And when they sue, that's when it'll become a matter that you can adjudicate. Okay, and then at that point, they would bring in the case, the argument that, hey, this is really a state's issue here, because without the state paying the $10,000, these vigilantes couldn't collect anyway. But right now, they can't even make that argument because no one is subject to the law yet, because no one's been sued for the $10,000 yet. Okay. None of the clinics have been sued yet.
I got that, but also, I mean, the judicial system is part of the state, isn't it? So isn't the judicial system also part of the enforcement mechanism?
Well, I hear you, but what they're saying is there's no case to adjudicate. Now, it's the liberal justices are saying, no, you're obviously creating a loophole which puts this into effect anyway and uses state power. So it's not wrong to ask that question. In fact, that's in my opinion, is probably the correct decision. But I'm just trying to explain the loophole to you guys. Right. And what conservatives are saying and what the conservative justices are relying on is, we're not, and this is the good news part of it, they're saying we're not judging the merits of the case at all, because it's not yet a case in front of us. Once somebody sues a clinic for $10,000, then it'll be a case in front of us, and then we'll judge it on its merits.
Got it, yeah. So we'll see if the Justice Department can really protect women who are seeking abortion. Right now, the abortion clinics in the state of Texas are being incredibly cautious. In fact, the day that the law went into effect, they canceled all their appointments because they're worried about being tied up in litigation, which of course will be incredibly costly and could bankrupt them. So this is already having an impact on women in the state. Now, Matt Gaetz of all people, a Republican congressman who's facing a DOJ investigation for possible sex trafficking of a minor, had some views on this. He says, quote, "The DOJ is out of control. This is totalitarian stuff. If they don't like the law, they will just use DOJ raw power to crush it." Oh, so regulating women's bodies and telling them what they can and can't do with their bodies, that's not authoritarian in any way. That's not totalitarian. That's not a problem at all, right? But the Department of Justice attempting to protect women's rights, that's where you get into totalitarian territory for Matt Gaetz. I mean, he's a clown.
But it's disheartening to see how easily people are duped. And ivermectin's one case of it that we're going to talk about later in the show. You just have to say simplistic things like, it's also approved for humans. But what is it approved for? No one asks, right? Or unfortunately, some people don't ask. In this case, he's like, can you believe the federal government is using its power like this? And all the right wingers go, yeah, I hate it when the government uses its power over human beings to take away their freedom. What do you think Texas was doing? I love it when Texas, the government uses their power to take away your freedom. But they genuinely believe it because they don't, you just have to frame it the right way. The federal government, when they act, it's tyrannical. When the Texas state government acts, it's wonderful and protects freedom. It doesn't have to make logical sense. It just has to fit pre-designed talking points and framing so it triggers the conservative mind to go, me like freedom, me hate tyranny. Right? Do you like freedom for women to choose what to do with their own bodies and their own lives? Me no like freedom. But no, wait, that's life. I have different talking point for that one. Okay, me like life. Okay, great. So you want to take the vaccine because 600,000 people have died. No, me no like life. I mean, me like freedom, right? They need their simple talking points. Look, I hate to do it to them, but they make us ridicule them with these. I mean, how can you not see the logical fallacy of Matt Gaetz? Okay, now back to the federal government and the Democrats. So when I see the headline, Biden and Garland say they're gonna do whatever it takes to protect the women of Texas, I say, okay, that's great, that's what we asked for, I'm happy to hear it, but I'm really curious how.
Right.
Right? Because there's a lot of different ways to go, and it's not that easy a question, because there's several different angles here in how it touches the law, right? And how it touches the federal government. So then I read and it says, oh, well, we will not allow violence at the clinics.
Right.
Well, look, I hope that's not the main issue. I'm glad you're doing that, but that's really got to be the bare minimum. If that's all you're gonna do, that's not that interesting.
Yeah, okay, so let me just give my assessment. And I'm glad you said that because I'm like, is there something I'm missing here? I feel like the Biden administration is giving us the illusion of taking action when in reality they're not doing anything because they're not addressing the heart of the problem.
Yes.
They're talking about like we're gonna protect women as they enter abortion clinics. No, but women aren't gonna be able to enter abortion clinics at all if they can't even get an appointment for an abortion because the abortion providers are terrified of the costly litigation that they're now gonna have to deal with as a result of people from across the country suing them for allegedly providing illegal abortions. That's the problem. That was not addressed at all in the statement that came from the DOJ, at all.
No, I always think of Dodd-Frank in these situations. All you have to do is tell the press that you're doing something historic or really strong, and they'll all write it down. It doesn't matter if it's true or not. Like Dodd-Frank was a very weak financial reform after the 2008 collapse that Obama passed, super weak. It let the bankers run roughshod again. And right now we're over leveraged. All those problems have come back in a different form. But they told everybody in the press, this is historic. And everybody in the press wrote, historic financial reform, as if it's fixed. And in this case, we are fighting back against Texas. We will do everything we can. They will do everything they can.
Yeah.
I mean, it's absurd.
It's stenography, yeah.
Yeah, look, yes, but what? What are they doing?
Right.
So, I mean, I was talking about airlifting the women out of Texas to make sure we can protect their rights if there's no clinics that are open.
That'd be pretty badass.
Okay, are we gonna do that? Are we gonna send in the National Guard? What are we doing? Oh, okay. I don't want them defacing the property of the clinics. Well, I don't either, and I don't want anybody's life in danger. But you can't brag about doing the least and then tell us you're doing the most. Well, apparently you can, as long as you have the mainstream media up your ass.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Kyle Cushing says, Cenk, is a 10,000 coming from the state, or are they collecting it from the people / institutions being sued? I thought it was the latter. You are right. They're mainly using the judiciary system. Sorry, I misspoke on that. That's my second correction on this story in the last couple of days. But I love that you guys are here to fact check me and keep me on my toes. But most importantly, get the facts right for everybody else. Yes, theoretically, if they lost, the $10,000 would come from the clinics. And so that's another way the Biden administration, by the way, could support those clinics by saying, we're gonna cover all your legal bills. Again, that would be near the bare minimum, but we still haven't gotten that yet. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR, so those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.